Welcome to Talk Treatises. Today we are stepping onto the rusted, frozen sands of Mars to unpack a piece of literature that basically masquerades as science fiction. But really, at its core, it's a devastating critique of the human condition.
Yeah, it really is.
We are doing a deep dive into Bryce Walton's seminal 1952 novella, The Highest Mountain. And, you know, it is a text that feels startlingly modern, despite the era it was born in.
It does, because when you read this work, you aren't just reading about spaceships and ray guns. You're reading a philosophical treatise on the nature of reality, on the psychosis of endless growth, and really the terrifying power of the human mind to enslave itself.
Exactly. And for anyone thinking this is just some, I don't know, a pulp rocket ship story, put that aside right now. This is a story about a mountain that shouldn't exist, about a crew that just cannot stop climbing it, and a man named Bruce, who is considered totally insane simply because he refuses to die for a metaphor.
And that right there is the crux of it. The mission of our deep dive today is to deconstruct this text, not just as a narrative, but as a rigorous philosophical argument.
Right.
We need to look at it through the lens of metaphysics. So the study of what is truly real versus what is merely perceived. The author posits a thesis that is terrifying in its simplicity. He argues that the drive for infinite conquest is a form of collective madness.
It creates its own obstacles.
Yes, it literally manifests a mountain that cannot be climbed because, in the strictest sense, the mountain only exists in the mind of the conqueror.
It's the ultimate be careful what you wish for scenario. So before we start climbing, or deciding not to climb, as the case may be, let's set the stage for you. This story dropped in 1952. Why does that specific year matter so much for this specific narrative?
Well, context is everything here. Think about 1952. We are in the dawn of the atomic age. World War II is in the rearview mirror, but the Cold War is freezing over fast. The space race hasn't officially kicked off with Sputnik yet, but the dream is definitely there in the public consciousness.
Right, there's this pervasive anxiety in the air.
Exactly. On one hand, you have the quote-unquote new era. This is mechanized humanity, extreme efficiency, the rise of the managerial state, and the looming threat of totalitarianism.
And on the other hand,
you have the old era. Individualism, art, poetry, emotion, all the things that don't fit neatly onto a spreadsheet or into a military formation.
It feels like the text is identifying a schism in the human soul that was happening right then and there. The tension between the organization, the loyal cog in the machine, and the individualists who are starting to say, wait a minute, is this all there is?
Precisely. The author is seeing the industrialization of the human spirit, and he places his protagonist, Bruce, right in the teeth of those gears. The story frames this collision between the old and new eras violently.
Yeah, I mean, you have the Conqueror Corps, which sounds like something straight out of a dystopian nightmare.
It really does. And then you have Bruce, who is literally quoting Byron and Poe while waiting for his crewmates to either come kill him or arrest him.
It sets up the intellectual problem immediately for the reader. The society depicted here has solved the problem of efficiency by pathologizing emotion. If you aren't producing, conquering, or expanding, you aren't just lazy. You are mentally ill. You are a deviant.
And that brings us to the one-sentence thesis of the work. If we had to boil this entire complex narrative down, he is arguing that the will to power, that Nietzschean drive to dominate and expand, is self-terminating.
It is a closed loop.
Exactly, a closed loop. The suggestion is that a civilization driven by conquest will eventually hallucinate its own enemies and its own barriers just to have something to struggle against. The mountain isn't a geological feature, it's a psychological necessity for a sick mind.
That is a heavy concept to digest. We're going to need to break that down piece by piece. Let's start with part one, the setup. We open on Mars, and it is not the lush, fun Mars of early sci-fi pulp. It is bleak.
Bleak is an understatement. It's a graveyard. The text describes Mars V, the fifth expedition. The landscape is eroded, worn completely smooth. There is this overwhelming sense of deep geological fatigue.
And in the middle of this absolute nothingness, we had the Conqueror Corps, led by Captain Terrence.
And Terrence is, well, he's a piece of work. He wears a uniform with a silver fist insignia. Subtlety was not the goal here.
Not at all. The silver fist is such a potent symbol, though.
It is. It represents technology and force combined. It's not a flesh and blood fist. It's a mechanized instrument of dominance. Terrence is the ultimate avatar of the new era. He is rigid, he speaks in slogans, and he is utterly incapable of introspection.
To him, the environment is just something to be beaten into submission.
Exactly. And then we meet Bruce, our protagonist. The text introduces him as he's reading Lord Byron. Specifically, he's reading Poe, too. A dream within a dream.
He's putting on a spacesuit while his crewmates, Jacobs and Anheuser, are literally banging on the door with guns.
Let's look at the specific dynamics of that scene. Bruce is inside the ship. It's cold. He hears feet on the gravel outside. That sound, feet on gravel, is so grounded and gritty. It contrasts so sharply with the high-minded poetry he's reading.
Right, he's reading, "Oh, that my young life were a lasting dream."
And he calls out, "Thanks, Mr. Poe." He's using literature as a shield against the brutal reality of his situation.
Then Jacobs and Anheuser enter. Anheuser is described as a bulk in his cold-resisting suit. Jacobs has a thin face that frowns slyly.
These aren't just physical descriptions, they are character archetypes. Anheuser is the brute force. Jacobs is the cynical enforcer.
And look at their dialogue. "Hey, poet, you're still here." They are genuinely astonished he hasn't run away.
They expect him to run. Why? Because in their worldview, fear manifests as flight. They cannot conceive that Bruce's form of resistance is simply staying put and refusing to participate in their madness.
Bruce even says, "Mars looks alike wherever you go. Where did you think I'd be running to?" He recognizes the futility of physical escape on a planet that is effectively a prison.
But Jacobs pulls a revolver anyway. This is the constant threat of violence that underpins their entire society. He says, "We gotta get some sleep. We're starting up that mountain at 5 in the morning."
The banality of it. He points a gun at a man to make him shut up just so they can get a good night's rest before their glorious conquest.
And Bruce's reaction, "I'll be glad to see you climb the mountain." It's passive-aggressive, sure, but it's also prophetic. He knows instinctively that the mountain is the end of them.
Bruce is the philosopher-poet archetype, which makes him the designated victim in this society. Note the dynamic. Bruce is calm, resigned, almost detached. Jacobs and Anheuser are agitated and aggressive.
Yet Bruce is the one diagnosed as maladjusted or schizophrenic by the state psychologists.
That part really stood out to me. The expert psychologist later in the story, Stromberg, claims Bruce has an incipient fear of personal inadequacy.
Right.
Essentially, because Bruce doesn't want to conquer the universe, the system assumes he just has low self-esteem.
It's a brilliant inversion of sanity. In a totalitarian system designed for perpetual war, peace is a symptom of madness. If the state's primary purpose is expansion, then an individual who is content with what they have is treated like a cancer cell.
Bruce's hesitation to kill or dominate is treated as a clinical defect. He reads poetry, which is non-functional data. Therefore, his brain is malfunctioning.
We get some really dark backstory early on to explain why Bruce is so checked out too. The Venus expedition. This wasn't just a we came, we saw, we conquered situation. This was a genocide.
It's one of the darkest passages in the text. Bruce recounts the history of the new era. Humanity reached Venus. They found a village of aborigines, intelligent beings. And what did the Conqueror Corps do?
They wiped them out without a single attempt at communication.
Bruce points this out, and the crew's reaction is terrifying. They don't even process it as a crime.
Because to the Conqueror mindset, the other is only two things, a resource or a threat. There is no third category like friend or equal. This highlights what we could call the Conqueror's paradox.
Which is?
You cannot find intelligence in the universe if you destroy everything that doesn't look or act exactly like you. Bruce realizes that the Venusians were destroyed simply because the humans couldn't recognize intelligence in a form that didn't possess weapons.
So we have this crew of hardened, conditioned killers on Mars. The planet is supposedly dead, except there's the mountain.
The object of desire. This is the metaphysical hook of the story. The planet is geologically dead, worn completely smooth by eons of erosion, yet rising out of this flat wasteland is a 45,000-foot mountain.
45,000 feet. That is significantly higher than Everest. It's practically impossible.
Geologically, yes, it's absurd. But the crew doesn't question the impossibility of it. They only see the challenge of it. It creates a categorical imperative. They must climb it.
Not because there is anything at the top. No resources, no strategic value, no data. Just because it is there.
Captain Terrence has this incredible line. Nothing's bigger than the destiny of Earth. He sees the mountain as a test. If they can climb this impossible thing, they prove their dominance over the cosmos.
It's the siren song of the imperialist mindset. Think of the myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus pushes the boulder up the hill and it rolls back down. He is punished by the gods.
But here, the humans are punishing themselves. They are actively seeking out the boulder. They are desperate for it. Without the mountain, they are just men standing in the dust. With the mountain, they are conquerors.
Let's look at the description of the mountain itself when Bruce looks outside. The text says, the gigantic overhang. It didn't seem to belong here. Bruce notes that Mars is geologically old. Erosion should have smoothed everything down.
This is a key scientific point the author uses to signal the metaphysical break that's coming. The mountain is an anomaly. Bruce feels it is pointing an accusing finger at Earth.
Yeah, the brilliant personification. The mountain isn't just a rock. It is a judgment. It is judging the Earthmen for their hubris in coming there in the first place.
So the crew prepares to climb. Bruce, being the quote-unquote powered, refuses. He stays behind. And we get this incredibly tense scene, the inquest, where Bruce is basically on trial for his life before they leave.
Right, the inquest scene is pivotal. It reveals the backstory of why Bruce is in so much trouble he killed Lieutenant Duran. But the why is the key.
Exactly. Doran saw something outside, a misty shape. Bruce saw it too, and he felt, what did he feel? Beauty, intelligence.
Bruce felt intuition. He sensed a mind, something soft and warm. But Doran, the conditioned soldier, felt only a threat. Doran's reflex was to shoot the unknown. Bruce's reflex was to protect it.
And Bruce shoots Doran to stop him from killing the alien presence.
This is the text arguing that the reflex to kill literally blinds the subject to reality. Doran could not see the beauty Bruce saw. His conditioning filtered his perception. He saw a target. Bruce saw a life.
By killing Doran, Bruce was trying to kill that ideology, that blindness. But of course, to Captain Terrence, this just proves Bruce is completely unstable.
Let's go deeper into the interaction between Terrence and Bruce during this inquest. Terrence is described sitting with hands folded on his belly. He's comfortable. He has total power.
And we see that silver fist insignia again. A silver fist implies a few things. Silver is precious, but it is also cold. It is industrial. A fist is a blunt instrument. It is not a hand that builds or caresses. It is a hand that strikes.
The logo itself tells you their entire philosophy. Value through violence.
Terrence calls the inquest a mere formality. He says, "This is a democratic group. Everyone has his say."
Which is a scathing critique of performative democracy. The author is writing this in the early Cold War. He's seeing how language is corrupted. Terrence claims to value democracy, but the very moment Bruce speaks, Terrence cuts him off and says, "You've said too much."
Democracy is allowed only within the extremely narrow corridor of agreed-upon conquest.
Bruce brings up the Venus incident again during this trial. He says, any idea that there was any democracy or freedom left died on Venus. This implies that the external violence, the genocide on Venus, inevitably caused internal rot. Tyranny on the ship.
You can't be a genocidal empire abroad and a free democracy at home. It's a profound point. Foucault calls this the boomerang effect of colonization. The methods used to subjugate the other eventually return to subjugate the domestic population.
The Conqueror Corps destroyed the Venusians, and now they are destroying their own crew members like Bruce, who show weakness.
Let's talk about the character of Max Drexel here. He's another crew member at the inquest. He calls Bruce's ideas crackpot idealism.
Drexel represents the intellectual enabler of fascism. He isn't the brute. He's the one who rationalizes the brutality. He dismisses the Venusians as aborigines. By using that specific word, he places them on a lower rung of the evolutionary ladder, justifying their displacement.
Bruce's defense of the Venusians is genuinely heartbreaking. He says, "They made their last mistake when they came out to greet us. They assumed the visitors were like them. Curious, friendly."
It's the tragedy of first contact. If one side is playing diplomacy and the other side is playing risk, the side playing diplomacy gets wiped out in turn one.
Here, Bruce also mentions the Pavlovian reflex boys. He says, if you didn't want to be reconditioned to fit into the social machine like a human vacuum tube, you kept your mouth shut.
Human vacuum tube, what a phrase. It reduces the human being to a component in a machine. A vacuum tube has no will. It just processes current. It's either on or off.
Bruce is critiquing the behaviorist psychology that was becoming so popular in the mid-20th century, the terrifying idea that humans are just bundles of reflexes that can be programmed by the state.
And Stromberg, the ship's psychologist, confirms this. He analyzes Bruce and says his schizophrenia is caused by indecision between the older values and our present ones.
Stromberg is the high priest of this new religion. He uses technobabble to dismiss morality. Bruce isn't moral. He has inner conflict. Bruce doesn't hate murder. He has an incipient fear of personal inadequacy. It's gaslighting on an institutional scale.
Terrence basically wraps it up by saying, we'd execute you, but we don't have the facilities, so you can stay here and man the radio while we go be heroes.
A classic villain mistake, leaving the witness behind. But it serves the narrative structure perfectly. Bruce becomes the chorus, the observer. He stays in the safety of the base while the crew begins the ascent.
Which brings us into part 3, the ascent. This whole section plays out through radio logs, and it is a slow descent into madness, or I guess and send into madness, literal and figurative.
It's a masterclass in pacing. The logs act as our window into the crumbling psyche of the crew.
At 15,000 feet, Terrence is optimistic.
It's the optimism of the early stage of any disastrous war or project. We'll be home by Christmas. It's a cakewalk. Terrence is bragging on the comms. Mount Everest is a pimple. What a feeling of power.
Pure hubris.
Exactly. They are high on their own supply of adrenaline and superiority.
At 25,000 feet, Jacobs and Drexel get altitude sickness. They have to take oxygen.
They are overcoming the body's natural limitations with technology. This is central to their ethos. The body says stop, but the machine says go.
But then, around 40,000 feet, the tone shifts. They should be near the top. But the mountain keeps going.
The geography starts to break down entirely. Terrence reports confusion. He says, there doesn't seem to be any top. They are climbing, and the horizon just keeps receding. This is where the genre formally shifts from hard sci-fi to psychological horror.
This is where the cognitive dissonance kicks in hard. A rational scientist would say, our measurements were wrong, or this is an optical illusion, let's go back. But Terrence cannot admit error. He says, I don't understand how we could have made such an error in our computations. He blames the math, not the reality.
And then the purge happens at 60,000 feet.
Anheuser, the loyal crewman, he starts to crack. He realizes something is very wrong. He wants to go down, and what does Terrence do?
He shoots him.
He shoots him, and then he justifies it on the radio to Bruce. He says Anheuser was dissenting.
Listen to the language Terrence uses here. He frames cold-blooded murder in the language of democracy and freedom. Freedom doesn't allow you to go around killing fellow crew members, he told Bruce earlier. But now he executes Anheuser for a failure of vote.
Right. He claims they took a vote to keep climbing, and because Anheuser refused to accept the majority, he had to be removed.
It's the ultimate hypocrisy of the totalitarian state. The vote is only valid if it supports the predetermined outcome of the state. Dissent is treason.
Terrence becomes the voice of the system. He speaks in slogans, even as he murders his friends. He cannot allow reality, the fact that they are dying, to interfere with the ideology of the conquest.
Terrence even calls it a test. This mountain will be a great tester for us. Find out quickly who the weaklings are. This is social Darwinism weaponized. The mountain is a filter. It filters out anyone with a survival instinct.
Which is deeply ironic because usually a survival instinct is, well, good for survival.
Right. The weakling Anheuser wanted to live. The strong Terrence wants to die, essentially. The definitions are completely inverted.
Then the numbers get insane. Terrence reports reaching 500,000 feet, then 600,000 feet. They are climbing out of the atmosphere. They should be floating in space.
Metaphysically, they have left the physical world. They are climbing a hallucination. The text is explicit here. They are dying of exposure, likely huddled on the flat ground or crawling over small rocks, but their minds are intensely convincing them they are touching the top of the universe.
As they go higher, Bruce stops taking his sedatives at the base. He lets the dreams in.
The dreams become his reality. He meets Pietro, Marlene, Helene. They are ghosts in a sense, but they are more alive than the crew freezing on the rocks.
There is a heartbreaking moment right before the end with Marcia. She's on the radio, dying, and her conditioning breaks.
It's the tragedy of the waste itself. Marcia was the only woman on the climb. She finally breaks through that silver fist mentality and remembers love. She remembers poetry. She calls out to Bruce. She asks, "What are you doing there, relaxing where it's peaceful and sane?"
She realizes Bruce was right all along, but it's too late. She says, they got me young.
That line chills me every time. They got me young. It implies that the will to conquer isn't innate human nature. It is a conditioned behavior forced upon the youth by a society obsessed with expansion.
Marcia could have been a deviant like Bruce. She could have lived in the garden, but the system molded her into a brick in the wall of conquest, and she dies for it.
We need to look closely at that dialogue. She says, "Bruce, darling, are you lonely down there? I wish I were with you, safe. Free, warm."
The contrast between cold and climbing versus warm and safe. For years, the conqueror culture taught Marcia that warm and safe meant stagnant and weak. In her final moments, she realizes the lie.
She asks him, "What are you doing reading poetry while we climb the mountain?"
And Bruce quotes poetry back to her. It's a beautifully defiant act. He quotes, "And the springs that flow on the floor of the valley will never seem fresh or clear, for thinking of the glitter of the mountain water in the feathery green of the year."
That poem, it captures the eternal dissatisfaction of the climber. Once you see the mountain, the valley seems dull.
Exactly. The glitter of the mountain water is the allure of the difficult, the distant. It poisons the appreciation of the fresh and clear water right in front of you. Bruce is acknowledging the tragedy. Marcia couldn't enjoy the valley because she was obsessed with the peak.
Terrence actually interrupts the poetry. What the devil's the idea of poetry at a time like this?
He is furious. Poetry is the antithesis of his mission. He is at 600,000 feet in his mind. He is screaming about the top of the universe.
We'll find the top, not the top of this world, the top of everything. This is the ultimate metaphysical extension of the will to conquer. Terrence doesn't just want to conquer Mars. He wants to conquer existence itself. He wants to stand on top of God.
And in that moment, he dies. He fades out into crazy yells.
His mind shatters. The human mind cannot comprehend the infinite. By trying to conquer the infinite, he broke his own consciousness.
Then, the silence. Bruce switches off the radio, and the world changes. This is part 4, the reality. Bruce is back at the base. But he's not just sitting there. He's dreaming.
The author inverts the classic Cartesian doubt here. Usually we assume waking life is real and dreams are false, but the text argues, what if the bleak reality you see is just a projection of your own cynicism? Bruce wakes up, looks out the window, and sees the desolation. He goes to sleep and sees paradise.
And then the reveal. The radio goes silent. The conquerors are dead. And suddenly, the dream overlays the reality. Bruce walks outside. The air isn't cold anymore. It's warm. The bleak landscape dissolves.
This is subjective idealism taking hold. The visual description here is incredibly lush. Purple mist blanketed the knees of low hills. Birds as delicate as colored glass.
It's almost Disney-esque in its perfection.
It's Eden. It is the Garden of Eden restored, and it was there the whole time. That's the sting. They didn't have to terraform Mars. They didn't have to build domes. They just had to stop holding guns.
Bruce meets Helene. She smokes a cigarette. It's such a casual human action.
It grounds the fantasy. If she were a glowing angel, it would feel like the afterlife. But she's smoking a cigarette in slacks. It suggests this is a physical reality, just a hidden one.
Helene explains the Martians to him. She says, they're masters of the mind, grinding along through the evolutionary mill a darn long time.
She confirms the evolutionary thesis. The Martians survived because they moved past physical conflict and into mental manipulation. They don't fight, they suggest. The Martians review themselves. They aren't warriors. They are described as ancient, telepathic, and soft. They are the masters of the mind.
Their defense mechanism is fascinating. They didn't fight back with ray guns. They didn't build a wall to keep the humans out.
No, they used the humans' own psychology as a weapon against them. They projected the image of the mountain because they knew the conquerors needed an obstacle.
If you send a warrior to a garden, he will burn it down looking for a fight.
Exactly. If you send a warrior to a mountain, he will climb it until he dies. The Martians essentially gave the conquerors a hamster wheel of death.
It's the ultimate trap. It's psychological judo. Using the opponent's momentum against them.
And it protects the Martians completely. They didn't have to kill anyone. The humans killed themselves. The humans chose the struggle.
The text notes, the Martians made the mountain real. So real that it could be seen from space, measured by instruments.
This is a crucial detail. It wasn't just a hallucination in the mind. It was a hallucination in the sensors. The Martians projected the illusion so strongly that it fooled the radar. This implies that even our objective measurements are subject to the nature of the reality we occupy. If we look for obstacles, our machines will find obstacles.
Later, the walks of the mountain, they find the bodies. Terrence is 12 miles away, horizontally.
That image is so brutal. He crawled 12 miles across flat rock, thinking he was climbing 100 miles into the sky. His fingers are clutching at rock outcroppings. He died fighting a gravity that didn't even exist.
Bruce carries Marcia back to the grass.
A final act of tenderness. He brings her to the valley she was too conditioned to enter while she was alive.
So Bruce walks out into the real Mars. He meets Helene, a survivor from a previous ship. He realizes he's not alone. There's a whole community of deviance people who refuse to climb living in this paradise.
The Valley of the Deviants. It's the philosophical counterweight to the mountain. Bruce, Helene, Pietro, Marlene, they survive because they lacked the drive to dominate.
It's an evolutionary argument, isn't it?
Precisely. Survival of the fittest is usually interpreted as survival of the strongest. The author argues it is survival of the cooperative. The aggressive genes remove themselves from the gene pool by climbing imaginary mountains. The cooperative genes stay in the valley and reproduce. The deviant is actually the true human.
Let's talk about the broader philosophical implications here, because this is heavy stuff.
The central pillar is the mutability of reality based on the observer's intent. To a killer, the world is a battlefield. To a lover, the world is a garden. The text suggests this isn't just a metaphor. On Mars, under the influence of the telepathic natives, it becomes literal physics.
So if I walk into a room looking for a fight, I create a fight.
And if an entire civilization walks into the cosmos looking for things to conquer, the cosmos will present itself as a hostile fortress. We create the dark forest by bringing our own darkness into it.
The text also posits that the will to power is self-terminating.
Yes. The silver fist does not need to be broken by an opposing force. It will crush itself if given a hard enough surface. The Martians didn't need to be stronger than the humans. They just needed to be patient. They provided the hard surface, the illusion of the mountain, and let the fist smash itself to pieces against it.
It reminds me of the concept of the hedonic treadmill in modern psychology. We chase happiness or success, but the goalpost just keeps moving.
That is the endless mountain in our modern society. We pursue infinite economic growth on a finite planet. We pursue the perfect body, the perfect career, the perfect social media curation. We are all climbing a 600,000-foot mountain. And the text asks, what if you just stopped? What if the mountain isn't there? What if you turned around and realized you were standing in a garden the whole time?
But society tells us that stopping is failure. Stopping is laziness. It's stagnation.
Just as Bruce was diagnosed with fear of personal inadequacy, we pathologize contentment.
And the text leaves us with that gruesome image, the skeletons.
The skeletons tied together with imperishably strong rope. That rope represents their social contract. They were bound together by their shared delusion. They couldn't save each other. They could only drag each other to the same doom.
And Bruce and Helene walk away. They don't look back. They enter the city.
They choose life. It's a quiet ending, but a triumphant one. The hero didn't slay the dragon. The hero realized the dragon was a puppet and went to have a picnic instead.
All right, this is where it gets really fun. We've deconstructed the text. Now let's push these ideas to their breaking point. It's time for our thought experiments.
A disclaimer, as always, for you listening. These scenarios are for entertainment and educational purposes only. We are designing these to test the logical limits of the metaphysics we just discussed.
Experiment number 1. Let's call this the teleological mirror.
Imagine a technology, or perhaps a highly advanced alien defense system, that scans the core drive or intent of a civilization as it approaches a solar system. It acts as a perfect mirror.
Okay, so it reflects what you are.
Not just visually, physically. If a civilization is driven by peace and curiosity, the planet presents itself as a paradise. Abundant resources, manageable weather, friendly biosphere. But if the civilization is driven by conquest and extraction,
the planet turns into a fortress.
Exactly. The planet presents itself as infinite, resource-rich, but incredibly hostile. The weather becomes violent. The native fauna becomes predatory rock monsters.
So here's the twist. Humanity sends 2 ships, the USS Poet and the USS General. They land at the exact same coordinates at the exact same time.
But they enter 2 distinct, non-overlapping dimensions of reality. The generals step out of the airlock and are immediately under fire. They spend generations fighting a forever war against silicon-based life forms, digging trenches, dying for every inch of ground. They are heroes in their own minds.
And the poets.
The poets step out of the airlock and find a garden. They build a university. They write songs. They never see the generals, and the generals never see them. They are occupying the same space, but their intent has tuned them into different frequencies of reality.
The question is objective reality even a valid concept in this scenario?
Exactly. And the disturbing implication for us right now, are we currently living in the hostile fortress version of Earth simply because of our collective aggression? Is climate change? Is resource scarcity? Is geopolitical conflict? Are these the rock monsters we hallucinated because we couldn't conceive of a relationship with the planet that wasn't based on extraction?
That is heavy. Maybe we are fighting a war against a mirror.
And the mirror always wins because you can't punch your reflection without breaking your hand.
Let's relate this to the Fermi paradox. Where is everyone?
This text offers a solution. Maybe we can't hear them because we are on the wrong frequency. If the mirror theory holds, aggressive civilizations are shunted into a quarantine dimension of empty, hostile space. Peaceful civilizations are networked in a garden dimension that overlaps ours, but is completely inaccessible to us.
So we are looking for radio waves, but they are communicating via empathy.
Or simply, the very laws of physics we observed, entropy, scarcity, the speed of light limit might be the bars of our cage. Maybe in the garden dimension, faster than light travel is easy, but you can't bring a gun there. Since we insist on bringing guns, or the psychological equivalent, we are stuck in the Einsteinian slow lane.
That is a mind-bending thought. We are trapped in hard mode physics because we are hard mode people.
Exactly.
Okay, thought experiment number 2. The Sisyphus rehabilitation.
Let's apply the Martian strategy to a penal system. We have violent criminals, people addicted to dominance, aggression, and conflict.
Instead of locking them in a cell,
We place them in an open field. We use a neural interface, a suggestive field that simulates a massive enemy army or an infinite mountain. We give them simulated weapons. We let them fight. We let them climb.
they can do whatever they want.
They can conquer to their heart's content. But the enemy never stops coming. The mountain never ends. They exert energy until they reach physical exhaustion or a psychic break.
And the only way out.
The only way to dissolve the simulation is to perform a non-utilitarian act of beauty. They have to sit down and recite a poem, or draw a flower, or simply help another prisoner up without asking for anything in return.
So the moment they stop conquering, the prison walls disappear.
Yes. The twist is, some prisoners might stay there forever. They would rather fight an endless war than write a poem. They would rather climb a fake mountain until they starve than sit in a real garden.
It tests the hypothesis that conquest is a sickness. Can you cure it by overdosing the patient on struggle?
Or is the addiction to struggle so deep that the patient prefers the sickness to the cure? The author seems to think the conquerors would rather die. The skeletons on the mountain suggest that for some, the silver fist is the only thing holding them together.
Think about video games. Millions of people voluntarily plug themselves into simulations where they fight endless wars, climb endless rankings, grind for endless loot. We're already doing it.
We are. We have built the Martian mountain for ourselves. World of Warcraft, Call of Duty. These are safe, virtual mountains. We exhaust our conqueror drive in the digital realm.
So maybe video games are saving the world.
That is a controversial take, but there is logic to it. If the drive to conquer is innate, which the text disputes, but let's assume it is for a moment, then giving it a virtual outlet is better than invading a real country.
But the author would probably argue that even the virtual conquest is a sickness. It keeps us from the garden.
Yes, he would say, put down the controller, go outside, look at a tree, read a poem. The simulation is just another layer of the silver fist.
What about the silver fist in corporate culture?
Disrupt, crush the competition, capture the market. Our economic language is martial. We treat business as war. And the result, burnout, the great resignation, people realizing they are climbing a mountain of spreadsheets that leads to just more spreadsheets.
And the deviants are the ones who opt out, the quiet quitters.
In 1952, they called them madmen. Today, we might call them minimalists or homesteaders, people rejecting the imperative of infinite growth.
That brings us to the final synthesis. The highest mountain ends with a profound irony. The highest peak in the solar system was a flat plain. The brave conquerors died citing nothing. The cowards inherited the planet.
It's a complete subversion of the hero's journey. Usually, the hero goes out, faces the monster, and returns changed. Here, the hero goes out, hallucinates a monster, and dies of stupidity. The anti-hero, the deviant, stays home and finds paradise.
It leaves you with a very provocative thought. We all have goals, we all have struggles, we all have that grind set.
Right. And the text asks you, what mountain are you currently climbing? Is it real? Does it actually lead somewhere? Or is it a projection of your own need to feel like you're struggling?
Because if you just let go of the rope,
You might find that you haven't fallen. You might find you're standing on the ground and the valley is green and the air is warm.
and on that note, we'll leave you to check your altitude. This has been Talk Treatises.
Keep thinking.
Goodbye.